Kate Anthony is the author of The D Word, Making the Ultimate Decision About Your Marriage. She's the host of the critically acclaimed and New York Times recommended podcast, the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. And Kate is the creator of the groundbreaking online coaching program, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And that program helps women make the most difficult decision of their lives using coaching tools, relationship education, some geeky neuroscience, community support, and deep self-work. Kate is certified as a domestic violence advocate, a co-parenting specialist, and a high-conflict divorce coach. Now, Kate has been a guest on the Find Me the Money podcast before, so we are happy to have her back with us today. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, at the end of last year, you released your new book, The D Word, and the book is so great. It's gotten such wonderful reviews, and it is truly a resource that is helping women who are most likely going to be getting divorced. I have to know, though, why you focused on women.
I really focus on women primarily because I am one, and it's the experience that I understand and appreciate. Right? I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a dude, so, but also because, as with most things in our culture and our society, women are can be very disenfranchised in their marriages, and it is one of my sort of life goals and purposes, I think, to talk about these things and to help empower women, and to uncover the systemic structures that keep women disempowered in their marriages and in society at large.
Well, we too at the Divorce Money Guide are focused on women. It's who has asked us for help, who seems to be in need of resources. And like I have a similar experience with women, right? I
Yes.
certainly identify with what they go through, even though I've never been divorced myself. And I just feel that the resources for them are so important. Now, when we're
Mhm.
talking about the decision to divorce, do you think making that decision is different for women than for men?
I do. I mean, I think that, as you know, women can be so financially disempowered. And so it can be a harder decision. First of all, 69% of divorces are initiated by women. So overwhelmingly, it is women who are actually asking the question and trying to decide whether to stay or go and making the decision. So, and by and large, marriage works for men and really doesn't work as well for women. So women are really struggling with this the most. And so I think that the experience of divorce, for the most part, I think there have been studies done and there's statistics that you can probably quote that men's quality of life goes up in divorce, whereas women's goes down in divorce. Now, I think it
Financially,
depends on
yes.
what the financially. I was going to say our quality of life, like, actually, I think many women find in divorce that their quality of life, their happiness goes up. Their life satisfaction increases. But when we're talking about the amount of, financial disempowerment that they might have in their relationships, like, it's a scary time. It's a scary, scary decision to make when you're not sure if you're going to be able to support yourself and your children on the other side.
Okay, I want to back up to something you said and just get a little clarity from you because you said marriage works for men and by and large,
Mhm.
marriage does not work for women. And I want you to explain a little
Mhm.
bit more about what you mean by that.
Yes. So, ultimately, uh, marriage really works to serve men on the backs of women's labor. Married men are able to get further ahead in the workforce and in their lives because they've got somebody taking care of the domestic labor, whether their partner works or not. If their partner is a working mom, generally speaking, well, statistically speaking, women do more of the domestic labor than men do. We take on more of the responsibility for the children, for the household. We carry the emotional labor in the marriage. Um, you said that in when you were talking about why you speak to women, that women are the ones who are really um, seeking answers to these questions. And by and large, personal development work, therapy, is more often consumed by women than men. And so you have women who are doing the labor, being men's therapists in their homes. So there's just a lot of weight on our shoulders, and then that men are kind of free of, right? They're free to, they have an average of 3 hours more leisure time per week than women do in marriages. There was a study that was done that determined the happiness levels of heterosexual couples, and the most happy were married men, then single women, then single men, and the least happy were married women. So you've got married men the most happy and married women the least happy. So
Wow.
it kind of speaks for itself,
Right.
doesn't it? Right? Yeah.
Well, today we're talking about women who think that they can't afford to leave their marriages. And what I've seen in my
Hmm.
divorce work is women being afraid to leave the marriage because of finances. They don't think they can make it on their own
That's right.
financially. And that's often
Hmm.
because they gave up their careers for the good of the family. And now, decades
Hmm.
later, they're going to be starting over again in the workforce with a husband who says, you don't deserve part of the house. You shouldn't get part of the retirement funds, and I shouldn't have to support you financially after the divorce. What are you seeing with your clients relative to this?
Well, first of all, I love it when, those are the threats, right? I mean, and they can be very effective, right? When a man says that to their wife, many women will go, "Oh gosh, well, I guess if you're not going to give me all these things, then I'll have to stay." Instead of actually seeking the truth, right? Like, have a consultation with an attorney and find out what your legal rights are,
Right?
because I will bet that you're not going to have access to these marital funds and my retirement and all of that stuff. It's kind of BS, right? That is,
Right?
they're not legally, those are not legal facts, right? You can't rely on the person that you're breaking up with to tell you the truth about what the law says about, right? Like, that's just not usually how it works, right? They're saying those things in order to prevent you from leaving. So, women have got to do their own due diligence. And I think they need to do their own due diligence before they have the conversation, because then when they're faced with all of these objections, they can say very confidently, that's just actually not how the law works. I'm sorry that you think that that's how it's going to work, but that's just not how the law works.
Right.
You
Well, being
know? Yeah.
prepared for divorce is so, so important. And we just recently released a new product called Prepare for Divorce because we
Mm,
want to make
mm,
sure that women are not listening to whatever their spouse is telling them. And they are going, well, one of our recommended steps is talking to an attorney. And we lay out some of the things you should be asking the attorney and talking about so that you have good information. And then really preparing financially, because you can feel trapped that you can't financially leave.
that's right.
And
That's right.
and I want to help empower women to get beyond that thinking and really make a plan. But let me ask about something really, really important. So,
Hmm.
when there is physical violence in a marriage, so I'm twisting this a little bit,
Yes.
I'm shifting.
Yeah.
When there's physical violence present, there's almost always financial abuse as well. And I know you talk in your book about this. So I want to talk about some of the signs of financial abuse that your clients are experiencing.
Absolutely. And listen, I think it's very important. Financial abuse actually underpins something like 95% of all forms of domestic violence. And this includes emotional abuse, cyber abuse, all of it, all forms. Financial abuse is the thing because it is the top way that abusers can wield power and control. It's the top reason that victims return to their abusers, because they get out and they don't have access to funds, and their abusers will kind of uh, you know uh, withhold all of the money as a way to get them to come back. So it is an enormous issue. What I see most often is women just not having access. They just don't know. And listen, there's a difference between a division of labor, right? Like, look, we all divide up our tasks and whatever else in the household. In a healthy marriage, we do that too. In an unhealthy marriage, those you are prevented. If your spouse handles the money, then you say, "Hey, I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about our money. I don't have a clear picture about it." And they'll say, "Oh, sure. When should we sit down like Wednesday night and we'll go through it all, of course." Um, I don't have passwords to any of our accounts. Oh, you should totally have those. Hey, is my name on all of the accounts that we have? I'm not sure. Why don't we check that out and make sure? Because right? That's how things should be in a healthy relationship. In an unhealthy relationship, in an abusive relationship, in a controlling relationship, you're when you make those requests, it's met with, "Why do you want to know?" Right? Or, "Don't worry, honey, I got it covered. I've always had it covered. Don't worry about it. Don't worry your pretty little head about that." Right? Or or defensive, right? "Why do you want to know? Don't you trust me?" Right? If someone says that, don't trust them. The answer is, well,
Well,
now I don't.
well, I tell clients, if you're asking, am I being financially abused? You probably already know the answer to that. You have a
That's right.
gut feel for whether this is right or wrong. Does it feel icky? You know, he put me on a budget. Well, budgeting can be good, but budgeting can be bad when it is used to abuse and control and nitpick you. So, do you just generally have a family budget that you all kind of abide by? Or are you individually put on some sort of strict budget? That's probably abusive.
It's more of an allowance, as like he's giving me an allowance. He's telling me I only have X amount to spend. If your partner is making a lot of money and you make less money, but you are responsible for 50% of the household, right? If you don't pool your money, that's fine. But if it's unequal, if you're splitting things equally as opposed to equitably, right? So if he makes twice as much as you, he should probably pay twice as much towards things. I know somebody whose husband made her pay for every single thing child care related. He did the mortgage, she did child care. She went into hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt because she couldn't afford diapers and preschool and all of those things on her salary, whereas he absolutely could have. And so he's creating this nest egg of savings and all of this and buying nice gadgets and cars, and she's driving a car that doesn't have air conditioning and carrying literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. That is financial abuse.
And he probably told her, well, it's not my fault you spent all of your money.
He said that because since she's so bad with money.
Hmm.
That's right. She's bad with money. And I said, "Okay, are you bad with money?" And she thinks she's bad with money. And then we start talking about, like, well, she's like, "Well, I'm in a lot of debt." And I was like, "Okay, well, how did you incur that debt?" "By sending my kids to preschool, by buying diapers." "Okay, you're not bad with money."
Right,
You're being asked to carry the financial load of your children. These are children. You made them together.
right. Well, so what do
Right.
you
Yeah.
recommend when women find themselves in a financially abusive situation?
Well, two things. One is to become really financially literate, right? Women have to understand finances, and finances are kept, deliberately cryptic for women, and in these, you know, I was like, it's the same with the law, right? I was reading through some legal documents the other day, signing a contract, and I was like, why does this have to be written like this? Why? Right? Why can't it just be written like, in English? But it's in legalese because I don't understand it. Now I have to pay an attorney to translate it for me. And it's like, no, it's actually very simple if it was translated. And I think the same is true for money. Money is this whole like crazy complex thing, and the language that's used in, in traditional financial sectors is really complex, but it's actually not that deep, right? It's not that complicated. I mean, sometimes it is, right? But we don't understand it. It's not in language. It's not in lay language that we all understand. So it's important to find people who make it understandable. The internet is now like Instagram. There's so many amazing financial people out there who just talk about money like it's a thing that everyone understands. It's incredible. And so there's so many ways like that to become financially literate. Podcasts, all of it. So that's the most important thing. Um, and then to start making and saving money for yourself in your own name. If you're being financially abused, this might mean that you need to uh, get a bank account of your own. You're not hiding this. If it comes down to divorce, you will declare it. I'm not suggesting that you steal or hide money, but you need to have access to money of your own. And so if that means you need to start like selling your crafts on Etsy, or whatever it is, start a business, then you have that money funnel through your separate PayPal account, a Venmo account, whatever it is, into your separate bank account. You have to have, when you go to the grocery store, get cash back and stash it. Buy a Visa gift card, stash it. Whatever you need to do to have access to your own money is vitally important.
Well, we talked earlier in the interview about the fact that women's lifestyles take a bigger financial hit than men's do after divorce. And
Hmm.
I think it's just a fact that women stay in unhappy marriages because of money. Certainly in the old
Hmm.
days, this was even more common because women were literally trapped with no
Hmm.
other financial
Hmm.
options. Not as big of a problem today, but still there. So for the woman who
Hmm.
says, like, I don't want to give up this lifestyle that I have, what's your advice?
Yeah. Well, I think my first piece of advice is that let's look at your values. If you value money and your lifestyle above, say, freedom, or relational intimacy, things like that, then great. Right? I'm not literally, no judgment. I'm actually saying that genuinely. If money and lifestyle is a higher priority and higher on your list of values, know that, own that, and live that. Right? And there are plenty of people that do that. um, but if you really value and want relationship intimacy and equality and a sense of um, ownership in your life, and you don't have that, then you may need to give up the lifestyle, right? Because you'll be living out of alignment with your values for a long time. And that makes us feel awful. It makes us depressed. It makes us anxious. It makes us, we feel out of alignment all the time. And so that's not a way to live. And by the way, a man is not your only source of finances and lifestyle, right? I know that when I got divorced, I gave it up. I gave up the beautiful house and the luxury car and the bank account. I gave all of it up because my freedom and my sanity was worth so much more. And then I built a business, and over time I built up my own, I make my own money now, and I don't have to rely on somebody else for it.
I think that that is a beautiful way to end the conversation. I do want to give listeners a couple of resources that I will absolutely put in the show notes. I know that you have a curated podcast playlist. Tell us a little bit about that.
Mhm. Yeah, so my podcast has something like 245 now, maybe, episodes. And so that's a lot to comb through when you're like, and they cover lots of different topics. So if you answer just a quick like I think it's 4 questions. I will send you a curated list of the podcast episodes that best suit your situation and what you're going through, whether it's should you stay or should you go, whether it's getting divorced, whether you're, dealing with an abusive situation or it's totally amicable. So I curate that list for you dependent on your situation.
And then, of course, we're also going to put a link to your new book, The D Word, Making the Ultimate Decision About Your Marriage.
Yay!
There
There
it
it
is.
is. Yes, thank you. Yep, and you can buy that anywhere. Someone just texted me that they saw it in the airport, so literally anywhere. So yes, anywhere that you buy books. I do also have a page on my website, kateanthony.com/dword, that gives you ideas about how you might be able to buy my book a little bit more in secret, because this may not be something that you want showing up in your shared Amazon order history.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. You always have great advice. It was great talking with you today.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I adore talking to you all the time. Thank you.